In the last decade, we've had 9 of the hottest years in human history. So scientists are deadly serious about doing something to stop global warming. Some of their ideas verge a little bit on the science fiction. Like, what if you could reduce the warming on Earth by using mirrors to reflect some of the sun's rays back into space? CUNY professor Peter Groffman is part of the Climate Intervention Biology Working Group. They are scientists from around the country looking at the question.
There have been ideas of using mirrors, and particularly to put giant mirrors in space to reflect the sun's energy back to space, which is very appealing to mirror manufacturers, but is not super realistic. The origin of the idea comes from studying volcanic eruptions. They shoot tremendous amounts of these tiny sulfur aerosols into the stratosphere, and you inject those into the atmosphere, and they're like tiny, tiny, tiny mirrors that reflect the sun's rays back to space, and they cool the climate.
This famously happened in 1815 when Mount Tambora in Indonesia erupted, causing 1816 to be the year without a summer, ruining crops in Europe and North America and causing snow in New England in June.
More recently, in 1991, there was a big volcanic eruption, and the rate of global warming slowed quite a bit.
That was Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines.
And so there's this idea, and so scientists said, well, if volcanoes can do it, maybe we can do it. We can do the same thing. So there's the idea that we can load airplanes up with sulfate aerosols, just like the ones that come out of volcanoes, fly up into the stratosphere, and add a layer of sulfate aerosols to reflect energy back to space.
What would be the potential downside of throwing this sulfate aerosol up into the high atmosphere?
In the US and in Europe over the last 50 years or so, we've spent a lot of time struggling with acid rain, which is caused by sulfur. Sulfur, we burn coal, and there's sulfur in the coal and it goes into the atmosphere. So a lot of people are like, we just spent 50 years getting the sulfur out of the atmosphere, you're going to put it back now? And there's been some good analysis of that the amount of sulfur that they're talking about is really not enough to cause us an acid rain problem.
Another possible downside is an increase in ultraviolet radiation that may worsen problems like skin cancer.
And the sulfate aerosol particles make it kind of a hazy day, so we get more diffuse sunlight. It allows more ultraviolet radiation, damaging ultraviolet radiation through. So there's concerns about that.
Professor Groffman says before we consider reflecting the sun back, we need to remember that the main cause of global warming, the carbon and gases we've put into our atmosphere, causing a greenhouse roof effect that holds in heat, is not just happening on summer days.
So nighttime temperatures have risen much more than daytime temperatures. And winter temperatures have risen much more than summer temperatures. And a lot of the ecological effects of climate change are coming from the change in the winter and the change at night. And solar radiation management doesn't do anything about that.
Professor Groffman says it would be a big mistake to reflect the sun back without also reducing carbon in the atmosphere. One reason? If we cool temperatures, trees will not grab and store and protect us from as much of the carbon as they currently do, which could shoot warming right back up. And trees could hold less moisture, increasing floods. Also, it could change whole ecosystems, with animal species showing up where they've never been before, bringing destruction and disease.
From a straight scientific point of view, that the uncertainties and the possible downsides, I would argue, are too high, that we should not go down this route. The scientific consensus overwhelmingly is we should solve the cause of the problem. We should get the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. We should stop emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And we're going down that road. I'm an optimistic person. I think in 2050 this discussion is going to be very, very different, and our economy is going to be decarbonized, and we're going to be well on the way to healing our atmosphere and healing our planet.
I'm Donna Hanover for Simply Science.